Hey Bashers, I went to the store the other day and look what I found. These were sitting on the shelf and they had a whole bunch of different styles, but I really like this color. This is the Nascar from Losi, and this is a 12 scale four-wheel drive brushed vehicle. And I looked at it, I thought it was pretty cool, milled around the store a little bit, came back, looked at it again, and I just had to get one. Now, being brushed, I'm not expecting too much out of it right off the bat, but being Losi, they usually make pretty cool stuff, but what I heard about this one was pretty simple. This shares a lot of the parts with the Chrome RCs from Arma. This is not an Arma car, but it shares a lot of the components, and that's becoming more and more prevalent throughout the hobby as things move forward. But this one right here, this is going to be pretty cool. This, if it does share that kind of stuff with the Chrome series, we should be able to upgrade this to make it go pretty fast. Still, at the same time, this is the initial video. We're going to get it out of the box, and we're going to show you what you get for your money. We're going to go over the layout on the components, and then we're going to take it out and we're going to test it. And we're going to see what this thing is good for out of the box. After that, we're going to ask our 4 questions. And if you watch the channel, you know what they are. Is it fun? Is it durable? Is it worth the money? And what's the total points here at the channel? This should be pretty cool. I'm really excited to get this one out of the box. Check this out. All right, let's see about getting this out of the box. Okay. So there it is in the box. That looks pretty good. Get rid of the box. And there it is. So this is pretty cool looking. It's 12 scale, so that's to be expected. I have some other 12 scalers in here. So that's all good things. We've got our packet, so we'll get into that here in a second, and our radio, and that's what you get. I'm assuming the battery's inside the car. All right, so here it is out of the box, and this is really cool. I mean, it's got exactly the right styling to it. It's got the patented tires and wheels on it, so this is all licensed, even the body style. This is the Ford Mustang, and it's all licensed through NASCAR, which is really cool. So the car itself is what I'd expected, being 12 scale. It's pretty bitchin'. Still, let's take a second and talk about the radio. All right, so the radio is the SLT2 from Spectrum, and you know, initially when I got these, I didn't really like them very much. They didn't fit my hand good. They kind of have a weird grip to them, but over time I've gotten a lot more comfortable with them, and it's gotten to where I don't even remember having it in my hand when I'm running them now. So I guess I've adapted to these. We haven't run into a bad one yet as far as these radios themselves go. Everyone has functioned properly. The range is good. They're really quick as far as the reaction between the radio and the car. That's all good stuff, and it has all the basics on here. So there's a cut down right here. If you watch the channel all the time, you're going to know what I'm going to do here, but if you're new to the channel, this is for you. So right here, there's a cut down, and this is your throttle control cut down. So you can drop the power to the car down to 50% by switching this. There's a middle position for 75%, and there's a full-on position at 100%. That allows you to cut the car back while you're learning, or if you want to let a friend drive it, you can turn it down so they can't total your car for you. Still, this one I'm not so sure it's going to go fast enough to be a big problem because they're a really tough platform. On the back down here, you have the on switch for the radio, and you have your servo reversing right there. On the front side, you have some adjustments here. So if this is true to form, this one right here should be your dual rate for your steering, so you can turn that up and down We haven't played with it yet, so don't hold me to that, but that's usually what those are. And then you've got your centering for your steering, so you can adjust this to get the car to track straight. And that's pretty much what that is. As always with Spectrum, the triggers and the springs and everything feel pretty good, so this is not a bad radio. And let's take a minute to look at the packet, and I dig this open, but it's really not all that necessary because you can see what everything is right here on the front, and I'll explain it to you. So it comes with batteries for the transmitter, and that's becoming more and more a thing with Horizon Hobby. So you're getting batteries for the transmitter. The battery should be in the carb. We haven't got into that yet, but it's supposed to have like a 14 or 1300 milliamp 2S battery. We'll find out when we dig into that. Still, here's the charger for that battery right here in this little unit, and that's a USB charger. We've used these before. I recommend having a really burly USB charging system for that. So if you're going to plug it into something, make sure it's not like 1 amp or something like that. Get something with some horsepower to plug it into, because we've had the wall warts kind of get warm on occasion, and that I am not a fan of. So make sure that whatever you plug this into has plenty of horsepower. You do have a sticker here that says Losi on it, and then of course you have a couple things here. On the back, this shows the upgrades that are available for it, and you can get all of these upgrades to beef yours up. But the thing is, a lot of these upgrades will fit on the Grom series as well for the ARMA cars. So that's what I'm told. I can't prove that just yet, but that's what they tell me. Also, the manual is right there, and the manual is really important. It'll tell you everything you need to do. It also has a loop connector in there for syncing the radio or binding the radio, so that's in there as well. But keep in mind, in the manual itself, it has all of the part numbers you'll need to replace things. Whatever you do, hang on to all the stuff in this packet. I like to keep them in the bag and just keep them in the filing cabinet so I can look up the car, have all the stuff I need. If you get out of pocket and you break something, this is something you're going to want to have, because it'll have every part number you're going to need, and you can go right to Horizon Hobby, find the parts that you need, and get them sent directly to you. But at the end of the day, this is what we're here for. We want to see this. So here is the underside, and it's got the plastic chassis, just like the Grom series, except this one, yeah, there it is. It does say Losi on this one, and this is a little longer than the one that comes on the Typhon. So it's bigger than the ARMA Typhon as far as wheelbase goes, which should make it more stable. It is four-wheel drive, and it has the racing slicks on it, as you'd expect. It does have good bumpers front and rear as far as trying to maintain that good look of the car, because these will hit first. The bumper will hit before the body if you catch something down low, so that will protect it. It also has, let's see if I can get you in here, it also has skirts on the side here to keep the body out so that it doesn't cave in if you take a shot in the side. Now, let's get the lid off of this thing and check it out. And here we go. That's with the body off, and yes, the battery is right here. Let's have a look-see. This is right down in here. It's the 1400 milliamp hour battery. This is a 2S, and so it's ready to go in the car. It does have the brushed motor here, but unlike some of the other Groms and stuff that we get, there is no heat sink or heat shield on this one, which is fine. I mean, that's not a big deal. It's designed for that. There's a fan right next to it to help keep this air flowing over the top of this, and it flows across the top of the speed control, which is right next to it. So placing this in the middle draws air through the front and pushes it through the back and gets both with one. Pretty clever, and it's a good way to keep all of your electronics nice and tight in there. We have our combo here, that is the speed control and the receiver. So if you ever plan to upgrade this and swap things out, you're probably going to have to add a receiver, because unless you buy a combo unit like that, you won't have that. It'll disappear when you swap this out. So as far as that goes, we have the receiver and the speed control right here. The servo is up front. Everything feels pretty decent as far as that go. Battery on this side, so this lays out your weight pretty nice and evenly with the battery on one side and all the other stuff on the other. Gives you a nice even feel to it. Everything is really substantial looking. There's a lot of plastic in these parts. They're really tough. But as light as this car is, it's not going to hit all that hard if this is brushed. The odds are that this isn't going to go all that fast. I believe I watched a video and someone hit 20 or 21 miles an hour with it. And that's okay for what it is. If this is, if you're club racing or doing something like that where everyone has the same type of car, that's perfect. It makes it a driver's game. But if you want to go fast, you're going to have to swap a few things around. In my understanding, and this is just what I'm hearing from the hobby store, is this has the diffs in it are all metal except for the sun gears that are in there, and those are plastic. So if you're going to upgrade this, you'll definitely want to swap out your differentials and get the all metal ones in there before you put all that horsepower in it that you're going to want to go really fast. That's just one of the things you want to do. And in a later video, let's see if I can reach this here, we have a combo unit we're going to put in it, so this will give us some brushless power. And of course, here we go, we have all the weird stuff we're going to need with the differentials and all that stuff to give it the upgrade to make this brushless. But until then, this always gets tested as it came out of the box. We're not changing anything. We're going to charge it up and go give it a few runs and see how it holds up. We intentionally don't wrench on them until we get done running them, because if you get one of these and you're new to the hobby and you don't really know what you're doing, you're going to put a battery in it and you're going to run it and you're going to see what this thing does. And if it starts falling apart on you, that's normal as far as being new to the hobby and not knowing how to check it. Once you get into the hobby a bit and you know how to check everything and make sure it's all good, you can preempt some of that. But the reason we run it without wrenching on it at all is, say this goes to your 7-year-old cousin. He's never played with one. He takes it outside and it falls apart immediately. That is quality control at the factory. This is an RTR, and that stands for ready to run. That's why we do it this way. All that being said, there's only one thing left to do. Let's take this out and test it. This should be a lot of fun. I've got some cones we can set out on the asphalt and we'll just see how it handles. Check this out. All right, so nice and easy here. We'll get started. And it is kind of cold outside, so this is what it is. There we go. And it's acting a little funny here. Let's check this out. Nope, something's goofy. Okay, so this has one problem that I've noticed right away, and that it drifts a little bit. So if you pull it like that and you give it a little that way, notice how it doesn't center. So this one has a real issue with centering. So an upgrade in the servo might be necessary here. All right, that being said, let's go ahead and run this. And I'm not an on-road guy, so we're just doing the best we can here. It sure does look good. All right. So it handles the way I'd expect it to. Not too bad. And there's top speed, just like that. And that's to be expected with a brush system. That's pretty good. It's skates around nice. So let's just let it run here for a little bit. And of course, we're running this at 100% throttle, and we'll kick it down a little bit to see how that works. Running it at 70%. If you like NASCAR, this is a pretty good rig for that because it looks really impressive when it's running. I just think it needs a bit more speed to really thrill me. But I could imagine this would work pretty good in club racing. It would be plenty fast enough for the right size track layout, and with multiple cars running, it'd be a lot of fun. It really is a driver's car, because controlling it, that's the real trick, is being able to control it. It will swap ends pretty easily, but with the right speed and being gentle on the steering, it actually controls fairly good. Nice and easy on the throttle. I think part of the problem is I have so much asphalt here that it doesn't look all that fast because of how much room there is. See how much area there is there? That's quite a bit, and for the speed of the car, it doesn't look all that impressive, but in a smaller area, it would definitely look better. An area this size definitely lends itself to higher speed cars. And all of this isn't new asphalt. There's some of it, like up in this area. Some of it's new, but a lot of it's older, and there's some dirt, dust, and debris in the way on stuff, so it is what it is. All right, so there's the running footage for the NASCAR from Losi, and is it perfect? No, it's not perfect, but did it run the whole time? Once we got it up and running, it ran pretty good as far as that goes. It's brushed, so I wasn't expecting too much speed out of it. Being brushed, I understood that it was going to run around 20 miles an hour, and it did that. So for what it is, if you have small space, this would work really good for that. But there is a couple things we have to keep in mind here. One, this has really low ground clearance. NASCAR is really close to the ground for wind resistance, and that's the way it works for racing. But if you have uneven surfaces, say in your driveway or in the sidewalk or in the roadway out in front of your place, if you're going to goof around with that, this is going to feel every bump. So you want to have something that's groomed and smooth. So pavement, a new paved area would be perfect if you could find a place to run it on that. Concrete as well, and if it's a smooth concrete surface, the tires may have trouble finding purchase because those kind of surfaces gain dust and the cars become really slippery. So you might think about swapping those over for some traction style tires instead of these slicks that it comes with. So those slicks, they really aren't going to work all that well on a concrete surface, but they work really good on the asphalt as far as that goes. Now, we did run at really cold temperatures. It was 33 degrees when we were out goofing off with this thing. So I understand that the traction is going to be a little lower than, say, if you were running it in the summer. At the same time, that being said, this did run pretty good once we got it running. And here's the first real issue. Ground clearance aside, we had radio problems. And what it comes down to is, this is the regular radio, right? So you push this button on the back and hold it for a second, and this red light comes on. Okay, now you guys already know this is geared towards new people, so if you're into the hobby, you understand this, but you turn the radio on first. With that turned in, now you make sure that your speed control is off and you plug in the battery. With this one, it didn't seem to matter. When you plug it in, it started making weird noises in the ESC, and it was just not okay. When you turn it on, it gives you steering, but you got no throttle control. So there's a problem inside of this. I wound up having to turn it off and turn it on. That didn't make a lot of difference, but once I unplugged it, plugged it back in and flipped it on immediately, then I got power to the wheels. And I had to do that each time, and there's something wrong with this one because most of these don't act that way. This one did have that problem, and that was kind of a buzzkill. Aside from that, however, it did drive good for what it is, with the problem with number 2, and that's the servo. And I'm not sure yet, we haven't dug into this, but I'm not sure whether it does seem to move easily on the wheels when you turn them. So I don't think there's binding in the wheels, but I don't think the servo is strong enough to center things up the way they're supposed to be. We'll dig into that later and see what's going on when we go for our upgrades. But out of the box, it had problems driving straight forward. So if you turn a little to the right and let go of the steering wheel, it continues to arc to the right a little bit. When you turn left and just let go of the steering wheel, it would continue to arc left. So it would not center. And that could be a real thing. It really can, depending on how bad that gets. On this, I was able to overdrive that a little bit and just handle it in the steering, but you shouldn't have to fight that, especially if you're new. Still, on the radio, we did kick this down to 50%, and it was really slow and manageable. 75%, it definitely held a little better in the corners. When you kick it up to 100%, that's a lot. It's a lot, and it will spin out on you, but probably not as bad as what we experienced since we were running out in the cold. Now, up where we live in the Northwest, it gets cold early and we just have to deal with it. But still, when they sell these cars, they don't know where they're going. They could go all the way up into Canada. They could go anywhere. And you're going to run that in your conditions. So this is still valid. Aside from that, it was really fun, and you do get the entire kit when you buy it. You get the battery, you get the charger, you get everything. You get batteries for the transmitter. So when you give this as a gift, let's say you have a little cousin or something that's a NASCAR fan, this is going to work really well for them if they have the place to play with it. It goes a little bit fast for goofing off in the house. But if you got wood floors, you probably could manage it. I wouldn't recommend it because this will blast into stuff because it is pretty fast. But if you ran it in the house, say at 50% throttle, you could probably goof around in the house just fine with it. Still, you have to run in the conditions that you have. I go out and run where I'm going to run, but that doesn't apply to anyone else. Everyone has unique conditions and everyone has their unique place where they're going to goof around with these things. Still, at the same time, if everyone you know that comes into your circle has one of these and you're going to club race, that means you run them out of the box. You don't do a whole lot of upgrading to them because stock class means what you get. So if you run in stock, they're all the same and it becomes a driver's game at that point. And if everyone's running the same car, it creates a real competition between people, which is what it's all about, really. Even in NASCAR, they have rules they have to go by so that cars are all equal. So it's actually a driver's game, and the pit crews make a big difference on making sure the time is good. With this, it would be much the same way. You have to get out there and outdrive the other guy because he's got the same car you do. That's the fun part of club racing, and if everybody's running these, this is a perfect car to add to that paddock. All of that being said, this did hold together well. The gearing stayed good, nice and crisp. It still sounded awesome at the end of our runs, and the tires held pretty good for what they are. You can do Brodies and donuts with it, but I really am interested to see how this will handle on a brushless system, and we are going to get after that here in the future. Still, the way it came out of the box, it did function, but the radio is a real buzzkill because if you couldn't have got it working, then you've got a full-on warranty problem, and that can be a real pain. I hate when they don't do complete, quality control checks in the factory to make sure everything's working properly. But I know they build so many of these that something's bound to get through the cracks. That's why we buy these ourselves. There's no sponsorships here as far as this stuff goes, because we get the same gear you'd get. Now, I know several people that have them, and they had no radio problems. So that means this one's a bit of an anomaly, and we'll go ahead and solve that problem because the motor and speed control changeover to go to brushless is going to replace all that stuff, so I shouldn't have to worry about that. Plus, this has the plastic sun gears in the differentials, and I don't know that would hold up to the brushless power. It's a lot more, and my understanding, I could be wrong on this, but I don't think so. My understanding is the brushless system I got will go up to 3S, and I do have a 3S battery for this, so it should get way out of pocket, which I'm looking forward to seeing if that happens. But at the same time, upgrading the differentials, I would recommend wholeheartedly because those plastic parts just shouldn't hold up to that kind of power. All that being said, it's time for our 4 questions, and if you have watched the channel, you know what they are. Is it fun? Is it durable? Is it worth the money? And what's the total points here at the channel? So let's get on with fun. Was this thing fun? Yeah, it was fun. Keep in mind, we're into the much bigger RCs here, so the smaller stuff has a little more trouble getting up in the ratings, but at the same time, we did have a blast with it. Personally, when I took it out, I had a really good time playing with it. within the abilities of the vehicle. So I'm not really a pavement guy as far as that goes. I don't spend a lot of time on the asphalt. I like dirt, and that's where I run. But still, if I was gifted this, that's where I'd have to go run it. So we took it out and played with it. The buzzkill on the radio really sucked. It did. Having to screw around with it to get it to work was a pain in the neck. Two, not being able to drive straight also was a bit of a buzzkill, because you should be able to just pile along straight and not correct all the time. So that was kind of a pain as well. That's going to cost it a couple points here. So in the fun category, in the fun category, we're going to give this one 7 out of 10 for fun, because it just could have been better. So let's get into that question number 2, durability. Is this thing durable? Well, we bashed it around a little bit, and we got it off the ground a little bit on some humps and stuffs, and we bottomed it out and everything. We didn't hit anything solid, so we didn't run into anything as far as bumping into a curb, slamming into a tire. We didn't hit any of that stuff, so that's going to be a little tougher to deal with on durability, because literally this car doesn't really go fast enough to break anything. You can run it right into stuff, and unless you just have an unlucky moment with the big bumper on the front and stuff and the speed that it actually travels, you're really not apt to break much. Now, that doesn't mean it's indestructible, don't get me wrong, but in our tests, it held up perfectly still without the ability to actually power it up to the higher speeds that it should handle. I can't be accurate on the durability. But still, for what it is, we're going to give it 9 out of 10 for durability, because it did come with a failing in the servo and it did have a failing in the radio. And they didn't seem to be all that durable, so we're going to give it that score. And question number 3, is this worth the money? Well, yes, it's worth the money. If you're into NASCAR and you have a paved area to run this, or a concrete area or something where you can play with it, it is worth the money, because you get a lot for your dollar with this thing, and it is everything they say it's going to be. The warranty works, so we shouldn't have a problem replacing the radio if that's the issue. We should have no issues with that. But to buy something new or gift it and then have to work on it kind of sucks. But at the same time, you get everything. You literally get everything, from the batteries to the radio, the battery in the car, the charger, although it's a really slow charger. And I've got to mention this one more time just so that you're aware of it. Make sure that you don't use a small one of these to charge it. Don't use a small one. This one is, it goes up to 2 amps, and still this warmed up a little bit using that charger. So I recommend getting a much bigger charger. One of these things that plugs into the wall, so this is just a wall charger, but get one of these that has a little bit more snort to it, so it doesn't have to work so hard to power the charger to the car, because I wasn't very comfortable using this. And it's a USB charger, so you go, well, I can plug it into that, and you can. But I'm not a fan of the danger of this warming up and you're like, hey, that's not okay. So if you're gonna use a wall wart, make sure you have one that has some horsepower to it to avoid those issues. Still, at the same time, for value, we're gonna give this 9 out of 10 for value, because I think you could get just a little bit more. They could spend a little more time on making sure it has a strong enough servo and things like that. So 9 out of 10 for value. And that brings us up to question number 4. What's the total points here at the channel for the NASCAR from Losi, the little 12 scale racer? This one's pretty cool, and it came in at a staggering, well, staggering is not the right term because it's not quite high enough for that. It came in at a solid 25, and for what it is with no modifications, that's not bad, because they do have a whole bunch of modified parts you can put in this, and they're right in here. So this has them right on the back here, and everything you can upgrade is there, which is cool. Plus, you can change out the running gear. The running gear consisting of the differentials. You can change the motor, speed control, add a radio, because once you swap over to a different speed control, if it doesn't have a combo, which means it doesn't have the speed control and the radio in it, then you'll have to add a radio module. But there is room in there to stick one, so that shouldn't be a big deal. But you'd have to buy all that stuff, which would easily cost as much as the car cost in the first place. But if this is your thing, if you love NASCAR, and so many people do, if you love NASCAR and you want a piece of it, but this doesn't quite go fast enough for you, that's something you can change. That's the beauty of the RC hobby. You can make your cars what you want them to be. So if you haven't already, don't forget to bash that like button and help our content spread. You know, we love doing this stuff. We really do. It's a passion for us. Tina and I and Rob, we've all been doing this. Rob's new, get that right, but Tina and I have been doing this a really long time. And we're still doing it. That should show you the passion for our hobby. It's not about YouTube. It never has been. It's about the hobby and helping new people. If you guys have one of these NASCARs and you've discovered things that we haven't, or you figured some upgrades, please feel free to get in the comments down below and help others along the way. That's what our comments are for. For AJ Jam Studios, I'm AJ saying, keep bashing.